Discover the untold, deeply moving stories behind the Ten Commandments, 1956, the legendary cinematic masterpiece that brought ancient Egypt to life in all its grandeur and epic scale. This film not only made cinematic history but also marked a turning point in the lives of its iconic cast, actors who poured their hearts into their roles while quietly carrying personal tragedies that few ever knew. Behind the spotlight were lives marked by loneliness, broken careers, and silent struggles that faded into obscurity over time. From stars who once stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood glory to those whose fates ended in silence and sorrow, each journey holds a dramatic chapter, often more profound than the biblical tale they portrayed. Forbidden romances, inner battles, prejudice, illness, and haunting deaths, all weave together into a dark yet truthful portrait of Hollywood's golden age. Join us as we unlock the door to the past and listen to the echoes behind the camera, where the glamour sometimes merely masked the pain and quiet sacrifices of the artists who brought greatness to the screen. Nina Foch, born in 1924, gave quiet, aching dignity to the role of Bithiah, the Egyptian princess who rescues and raises the infant Moses in the Ten Commandments, 1956. Her regal grace concealed an undercurrent of sorrow, much like her real life. A Dutch-born actress, Foch was also memorable in An American in Paris, 1951, and Spartacus, 1960, yet she never became a leading star, a painful near miss that haunted her despite the respect she garnered. Her personal life was marked by instability. She was married and divorced 3 times, including to director James Lipton, who would go on to fame with Inside the Actors Studio. She had 1 son, Dr. Dirk de Brito, with whom she was close, yet the search for lasting emotional peace always eluded her. Foch devoted her later years to teaching acting at USC, shaping young talents with a blend of discipline and compassion. In 2008, she died alone at 84 from complications due to myelodysplastic syndrome, a disorder that weakens the bone marrow, her final months marked by frailty, solitude, and the quiet ache of a life that gave so much more than it received. Yul Brynner, born in 1920, played the proud and defiant Pharaoh Ramesses II in the Ten Commandments, 1956, a role that cemented his legacy as a symbol of power and stoic dominance. His performance stood in stark contrast to his real life, which was riddled with personal tumult and aching contradictions. Born Yuli Borisovich Brynner in Vladivostok, Russia, he fabricated much of his early biography, claiming partial Mongolian ancestry and a birthplace on the island of Sakhalin, perhaps a signal of his internal dissonance and lifelong identity struggle. Though his shaven head became a trademark from his role as the King of Siam in The King and I, both on stage and in the 1956 film adaptation, the man behind the mask remained enigmatic, even to his closest companions. His marriages, 4 in total, cracked under the weight of his perfectionism and emotional isolation. He fathered 5 children, including Victoria Brynner, but his detachment was often criticized. Brynner's life drew to a mournful close in 1985 when he succumbed to lung cancer, the result of decades of heavy smoking. He recorded an anti-smoking public service announcement shortly before his death: "Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke." His death carried a haunting finality, as if Ramesses himself had finally surrendered to the one plague he could not part. Charlton Heston was born in 1923, and he played the towering role of Moses in the Ten Commandments, 1956, a performance so iconic it became fused with his identity. Heston's career was a saga of grandeur. He was also unforgettable as Judah Ben-Hur in Ben-Hur, 1959, a role that earned him an Academy Award, and he portrayed the anguished astronaut George Taylor in Planet of the Apes, 1968, where he raged at the crumbling ruins of civilization. Yet behind his commanding presence on screen was a man grappling with time's cruelty. In his final years, Heston was slowly devoured by Alzheimer's disease, a disease that stole the memory of the mighty roles he once embodied and of the adoration that once surrounded him. His wife, Lydia Clark, remained by his side from 1944 until his death in 2008, a rare and enduring bond in Hollywood, but they too faced heartbreak. Their adopted daughter, Holly Ann, struggled to live in the shadow of her father's greatness. Heston died at 84, his once resonant voice silenced, his legacy trapped in a mind that could no longer hold it. John Derek was born in 1926, and in The Ten Commandments, 1956, he portrayed Joshua, the brave Hebrew warrior whose love and loyalty to Moses shone like a beacon amidst tyranny and despair. Derek, a man of striking beauty, was often more recognized for his roles in films like All the King's Men, 1949, and Knock on Any Door, 1949, but it was his tempestuous personal life that truly drew headlines. His marriages, to Patty Bayers, Ursula Andress, Linda Evans, and most famously Bo Derek, were marked by a controlling nature that cast shadows on his charm. He discovered and shaped Bo Derek's career, but their love was controversial and steeped in imbalance, beginning when she was just a teenager and he was in his 40s. His relationships often began in passion and ended in silence, leaving behind a wake of heartbreak. His children, particularly Sean Derek, found themselves orbiting a man who could never quite connect on a deeper emotional level. In 1998, John Derek died of cardiovascular disease after heart surgery, slipping away in a hospital room in Santa Maria, California, far from the glamour and sunshine of the world he once ruled. His looks had long faded, his fame a whisper. He died with few beside him, remembered more for the women he loved than the battles he fought on screen. Martha Scott was born in 1912, and in The Ten Commandments, 1956, she portrayed Jochebed, the sorrowful and devoted mother of Moses, a woman who sacrifices everything to save her child. It was a role that resonated with Scott's quiet, maternal presence, seen also in her Oscar-nominated debut as Emily Webb in Our Town, 1940, and again in Ben-Hur, 1959, where she reprised her role as a mother, always the symbol of love and quiet suffering. But beyond the camera's frame, her own story was laced with heartbreak. Though married twice, including to composer Mel Powell, her personal life remained reserved, almost guarded, as if pain had taught her to keep her joys close and her sorrows even closer. She had children, but rarely spoke of the struggles of balancing motherhood with a career in a male-dominated industry that often overlooked her dignity and strength. In her later years, the bright lights dimmed, and Martha faded quietly into obscurity, living far from the Hollywood dazzle she once graced. She died in 2003 at the age of 90 from natural causes, her passing largely unnoticed, a soft exit for a woman whose screen presence once trembled with sacrifice and grief. The final chapter of her life was gentle, but unbearably silent, like a lullaby sung to no one. Vincent Price was born in 1911, and though known best as the master of the macabre in The Ten Commandments, 1956, he played Baca, the cruel Egyptian master builder whose arrogance met a fatal end at the hands of the slaves he once tormented. Price's voice, honeyed and sinister, became legendary through chilling roles in House of Wax, 1953, The Pit and the Pendulum, 1961, and countless other Gothic horrors. But beneath the theatrical villain was a sensitive man, one who never quite fit the role the world wrote for him. His 2 marriages ended in sadness, and his relationship with his only child, Victoria, was strained, deepened by whispers about his bisexuality, which he never publicly confirmed, and which may have tormented him in a time of ruthless social stigma. A lover of art and poetry, Price often found more solace in books than in people. His final years were filled with pain, as he battled Parkinson's disease and lung cancer, the latter worsened by a lifetime of smoking. In 1993, Vincent Price died at the age of 82, frail and fading, his voice reduced to a ghostly rasp. The world remembered his sinister laugh, but not the loneliness that echoed behind it. Anne Baxter, born in 1923, brought to life the role of Nefertiri, the seductive and tragic Egyptian princess torn between love, power, and jealousy in the Ten Commandments, 1956. With her piercing eyes and magnetic intensity, she had already bewitched audiences in All About Eve, 1950, where her portrayal of the manipulative Eve Harrington won her an Academy Award. Baxter's beauty and talent were undeniable, but behind her shimmering screen presence lay a turbulent personal history. Her first marriage to actor John Hodiak ended in divorce, leaving her to raise their daughter Katrina alone, while her second marriage to rancher David Klee was cut cruelly short when he died suddenly, just months after their wedding. Her final years were spent in Montana, away from the glare of Hollywood, but not from its echoes. Her relationship with her daughter became fractured, and her legacy complicated by unmet expectations and misunderstood love. In 1985, Anne collapsed on Madison Avenue in New York City after suffering a cerebral aneurysm. She lingered in a coma for days before passing at the age of 62. The woman once hailed as Hollywood royalty died in the city's anonymous pulse, her life ending in a hospital room, alone but for the machines. Her elegance remained, but her story, like Nefertiri's, was one of power, beauty, and in the end, haunting solitude. John Miljan was born in 1892 and played the blind one in The Ten Commandments, 1956. A fleeting but symbolic character, a man robbed of sight, yet blessed with vision. It's fitting, in a somber way, for an actor whose own career was gradually overshadowed by the shifting tides of cinema. Miljan had once been a prolific leading man in silent films and early talkies, appearing in works like The Plainsman, 1936, and Meet John Doe, 1941, his stern voice and commanding gaze often cast as the villain or the dignified official. But with each decade, the roles shrank, and so did the spotlight. His personal life offered little reprieve, while his marriage to Victoire Lowe endured on the surface. His distance and emotional detachment created quiet rifts that were never quite mended. They had 2 sons, but Miljan remained a shadowy figure in their lives, more presence on the screen than at the dinner table. As Hollywood's golden age passed him by, Miljan retreated into obscurity. He died in 1960 from cancer, a slow and painful erosion that left him in isolation. There were no grand obituaries, no cinematic tributes, only a whisper among old reels and fading celluloid. The man who once played gods and generals died unseen, like his final character, whose eyes were blind but whose sorrow was endless. Yvonne de Carlo was born in 1922, and in The Ten Commandments, 1956, she played Sephora, the gentle and loyal wife of Moses, a role that gave her a brief moment to shine not as the glamorous vamp, but as the soulful heart of a sacred epic. Before that, she had been a sultry starlet in films like Salome, where she danced, 1945, and Criss Cross, 1949, where she often found herself typecast as the exotic beauty, desired, but never fully respected for her depth. Her personal life mirrored that cinematic confinement. Behind the sequins and smiles was a woman battered by disappointment. She married stuntman Bob Morgan, and their union seemed charmed, until a devastating on-set accident left him nearly crippled, plunging their marriage into strain, resentment, and eventual divorce. Her two sons, Bruce and Michael, were her solace, but even there, grief found its way in. Michael died of a brain condition in 1997, a loss that left Yvonne hollowed and withdrawn. By then, she had long since faded from her glamour days, known mostly as Lily Munster from The Munsters, a role that made her beloved, but also marked her as a relic of camp. In 2007, she died in near anonymity at the age of 84 from heart failure in a motion picture rest home, her once famous face all but forgotten. Stardom had passed her by, and in the end, she died in quiet, remembered more by the nighttime flicker of TV reruns than the marquee lights she once owned. What do you think about the deaths of the actors from the Ten Commandments? Which one do you remember the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss